The alarm bells rang across the bridge of the UES Defiant Dawn as enemy ships appeared on the screen. Captain Yuna Kim stood in the center of her command bridge, watching the red dots multiply on the display. At 26 years old, she was the youngest captain in the history of the Terran Defense Fleet. Many people said she was too young for the job. Today she would prove them wrong. "Captain, we have 12 Vorthak cruisers approaching Kepler Station," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Jae-hyun-oh. His voice was steady, but Yuna could hear the worry underneath. They came out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't detect them until they were almost on top of the station. Yuna studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were moving in a perfect formation, heading straight for the mining station that housed 50,000 civilians. The station's defenses were weak. It would not last long against 12 enemy cruisers. "Commander Park, what's our status?" Yuna asked her first officer. Commander Ji-won Park checked her console. "All systems ready, Captain. Weapons charged, shields at full power, but we're just one ship against 12. "Sometimes one ship is enough," Yuna said quietly. She had learned this lesson many times during her rapid rise through the fleet ranks. People always looked at the numbers first. They forgot that numbers didn't tell the whole story. The bridge crew waited for her orders. Yuna had served with most of them for 2 years. They trusted her even when her plans seemed impossible. She had never let them down before. "Lieutenant Lee, can you give me more power to the engines?" she asked her chief engineer. Lieutenant Min-ho Lee's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "I can push them to 120%, Captain. But not for long. That's all I need." Yuna moved to the helm. "Jae-hyun, target the lead ship's communication array. Ji-won, prepare the emergency beacon." "Captain, what are you planning?" Commander Park asked. Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. "We're going to do something the Vorthak don't expect. We're going to attack." The Vorthak had been fighting humans for 5 years. They were bigger, stronger, and had better technology. But they always fought the same way. They used overwhelming force and expected their enemies to run or surrender. They had never learned to expect the unexpected from humans. "Take us around the asteroid field," Yuna ordered. "Full speed. Use the rocks to hide us until we're close." The Defiant Dawn shot forward, weaving between the large space rocks that floated near Kepler Station. The asteroids blocked the enemy sensors, making the human ship invisible. Yuna had used this trick before. Space was full of places to hide if you knew how to look. On the main screen, they watched the Vorthak ships begin their attack on the station. Bright energy beams lit up the darkness as the station's defense guns tried to fight back. But the station was losing. Its shields were already flickering. 30 seconds to attack position, reported the helmsman. Yuna felt the familiar calm that came before battle. Her heart slowed down. Her mind became clear. This was why Admiral Choi had made her a captain so young. She could think clearly when everyone else was panicking. "All weapons target the command ship," she ordered. "We only get one surprise attack. Make it count." The Defiant Dawn burst out from behind a large asteroid directly behind the Vorthak formation. Yuna's timing was perfect. The enemy ships were focused on the station and didn't see them coming. "Fire everything," Yuna commanded. The ship shook as all weapons fired at once. Energy beams and torpedoes streaked across space, hitting the Vorthak command ship before it could raise its shields. The enemy vessel exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Target the next ship. Keep firing." But now the other Vorthak ships knew they were there. The enemy formation began to turn, bringing their massive guns around to face the lone human ship. "Captain, they're targeting us," Jae-hyun reported. 11 ships, all weapons charged. "Evasive maneuvers," Yuna ordered. "Take us back into the asteroid field." The Defiant Dawn twisted and rolled, dodging between the space rocks as enemy fire lit up around them. One energy beam grazed their shields, making the ship shake. "Shields down to 80%, reported the tactical officer. Yuna watched the enemy ships try to follow them into the asteroid field. The Vorthak pilots were good, but they were being careful. They didn't want to damage their ships on the rocks. That caution would be their weakness. "Minho, I need you to overload our main deflector," Yuna called to engineering. "Captain, that could damage our shield generators," came the worried reply. "Do it anyway, and prepare for emergency separation of the warp core." Commander Park looked at her with wide eyes. "Captain, you're not thinking of—" "I am." Yuna turned to face her crew. Everyone listened carefully. "In 60 seconds, we're going to make those ships think we're dead. When I give the order, cut all power except life support. No lights, no engines, nothing. We're going to play dead. The crew worked quickly to prepare. They had learned to trust their captain's unusual plans, even when those plans seemed crazy. Overloading deflector now, reported Minho from engineering. The ship's shields flared bright white, then flickered and died. To the Vorthak sensors, it would look like the Defiant Dawn had suffered a critical systems failure. All stop. Cut power. Emergency beacon activated, Una ordered. The bridge went dark except for the red emergency lights. The ship drifted silently among the asteroids like a piece of dead metal. On their passive sensors, they watched the Vorthak ships approach cautiously. They're scanning us, whispered Jaehyun. Let them, Una replied softly. Dead ships don't fight back. 3 Vorthak cruisers moved closer to investigate. They thought the human ship was destroyed and wanted to confirm the kill. It was exactly what Una had hoped they would do. When the enemy ships were close enough, Una struck again. Full power, all weapons on the nearest target. The Defiant Dawn came alive like a sleeping giant. Lights blazed across the hull as weapons charged and fired. The closest Vorthak ship, caught completely by surprise, died in seconds. The second ship tried to turn away but took critical damage to its engines. Take us out of here, Una ordered. Best speed toward Kepler Station. The remaining Vorthak ships were confused and angry. They chased after the Defiant Dawn, but Una led them on a wild chase through the asteroid field. Every time they got close, she would duck behind another rock or change direction suddenly. By the time they reached clear space, 3 more Vorthak ships had been destroyed and 2 others were badly damaged. The surviving enemy vessels decided they had lost enough ships for one day. They retreated into hyperspace, leaving Kepler Station safe. Well done, everyone, Una said as the crew cheered around her, but she didn't smile. Something about this attack bothered her. The Vorthak had never been this aggressive before, and how had they gotten so close without being detected? 3 days later, Una received new orders. She was to report to Fleet Headquarters on Earth immediately. When she arrived at Admiral Choi's office, she found her old mentor looking older and more tired than she had ever seen him. Sit down, Una, Admiral Hyunwoo Choi said quietly. We need to talk. The Admiral activated a security field around his office, then pulled up a star map on his display. Red markers showed the locations of human colonies, but many of the markers were flashing. 17 colonies have gone dark in the past week, Admiral Choi said. We've lost contact with over 40 million people. The Vorthak have developed some kind of new weapon. Our ships can't get close enough to investigate. Una felt cold fear growing in her stomach. How many ships do we have left? 43 combat vessels. That's all. The enemy has over 2,000 ships heading for Earth. They'll be here in less than a month. The Admiral looked at Una with sad eyes. I'm giving you command of the defense fleet. You're our best tactical mind, and we need every advantage we can get. Una stared at the star map, understanding the terrible truth. Humanity was losing the war. Maybe they had already lost it. In a few weeks, every human in the galaxy might be dead. What are my orders, sir? She asked. Save our species, Admiral Choi replied. Do whatever it takes. The survival of humanity is in your hands. As Una left the Admiral's office, she carried the weight of 6 billion lives on her shoulders. She was the youngest captain in fleet history. Soon she might be the last captain in human history, but she would not give up. Humans never gave up. That was what made them different from every other species in the galaxy. The final battle was coming, and Captain Una Kim would be ready for it. Luna Station buzzed with activity as the surviving ships of the Terran Defense Fleet gathered for what might be humanity's final battle. Captain Una Kim stood in the main briefing room, looking at the faces of the other ship commanders. Some she knew well. Others were strangers. All of them looked worried. Ladies and gentlemen, Una began, we have 3 weeks before the Vorthak Armada reaches Earth. 43 ships against over 2,000. Those are not good odds. Captain Donghyun Kang of the heavy cruiser Iron Resolve stood up. He was a big man with gray hair and old scars on his face. With respect, Captain Kim, maybe it's time to consider surrender. We can't win this fight. Several other captains murmured agreement. Una had expected this. Captain Kang was a good officer, but he was old-fashioned. He believed in fighting only when you could win. Captain Kang, Una said calmly, what do you think the Vorthak will do if we surrender? They'll let the civilians live. They need workers for their empire. Captain Soman Yoon of the stealth frigate Shadow Strike laughed bitterly. Have you seen what they did to the colonies? They don't take prisoners. They don't want workers. They want us extinct. Soman was right. The few survivors who had escaped from the outer colonies told horrible stories. The Vorthak weren't interested in ruling humans. They wanted to remove them completely. We fight, Yuna said firmly. That's what we do. That's what makes us human. Captain Kang shook his head. You're asking us to follow a child into a hopeless battle. No offense, Captain Kim, but experience matters in war. The room went quiet. Everyone knew about Yuna's age and her rapid promotion. Some people still whispered that she had gotten her rank through luck rather than skill. You're right about experience, Yuna replied. But sometimes fresh eyes see things that experience misses. I've studied every battle the Vorthak have fought. They have a weakness. She activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A three-dimensional image showed a typical Vorthak fleet formation. Their new quantum weapons require perfect coordination between their command ships, Yuna explained. Each weapon creates a field that links with the others. If we can disrupt their communication network at the right moment, their entire fleet becomes vulnerable. Lieutenant Jae-hyun Oh, who had come with Yuna from the Defiant Dawn, stepped forward. Captain, I've been working on this problem. If we can plant a quantum virus in their main communication hub, it would spread through their entire network in seconds. How do we get close enough to plant this virus? Asked Captain Kang. Yuna took a deep breath. Someone has to take their ship directly into the enemy formation. It's a one-way mission. The room erupted in angry voices. Several captains started shouting at once. Captain Kang stood up again, his face red with anger. This is madness. You're talking about suicide. I'm talking about survival, Yuna shot back. Their survival. She pointed toward Earth, visible through the station's main window. 6 billion people are counting on us. We don't get to choose easy options. Captain Soman raised her hand for quiet. When the room settled down, she spoke in a clear voice. I volunteer for the suicide mission. My ship is fast and hard to detect. I can get closer than anyone else. No, Yuna said quickly. I need you for something else. Your stealth ships will create diversions while the main fleet moves into position. For the next hour, they planned the battle. It would happen in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The Space Orcs would provide cover and interfere with enemy sensors. The human ships would hide among the asteroids until the perfect moment to strike. Captain Kang continued to argue against the plan, but most of the other commanders began to see the logic. It was desperate, but it might work. And it was better than giving up without a fight. What about the quantum virus? Asked Captain Yoon. How do we make sure it works? Lieutenant Jae-hyun stepped forward again. I've been working with the tech teams from all our ships. We think we can create a virus that looks like normal communication data. The Vorthak computers won't recognize it as a threat until it's too late. After the meeting, Yuna walked through Luna Station's corridors. The station was crowded with refugees from the outer colonies. Families with children, old people, young couples who had lost everything. They all looked at her with hope in their eyes. They believed she could save them. In the medical bay, she found Dr. Yoon Ji-han working on something that looked like a small silver device. What's that? Yuna asked. Dr. Han looked up with tired eyes. Bioweapon detector. The Vorthak have been using poison gas on some colonies. This device will warn us if they try the same thing on our ships. Will it work? I hope so. I'm also working on an antidote, but I need more time. Yuna nodded. Time was the one thing they didn't have enough of. Later that evening, Yuna sat in her quarters aboard the Defiant Dawn. She was writing letters to her family on Earth. Letters that would only be sent if she didn't survive the battle. It was something she had done before every major fight, but this time felt different. Commander Ji-won Park knocked on her door. Captain, you should get some sleep. Can't sleep, Yuna admitted. Too many people depending on us. Ji-won sat down across from her. The crew believes in you. So do most of the other captains. But not all of them. Captain Kang will come around. He's scared, but he's a good officer. When the shooting starts, he'll do his job. Yuna hoped Ji-won was right. They needed every ship, every captain, every crew member working together. A divided fleet would be a dead fleet, Ji-won. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you, her first officer interrupted. If something happens, Yuna continued, I want you to take command. Don't let them surrender. Promise me. Ji-won was quiet for a long moment. I promise. But you're going to be fine. We all are. The next morning brought bad news. The enemy fleet had been detected leaving hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. They were 3 days ahead of schedule. How many ships? Yuna asked as she rushed onto the bridge. 2,137, reported Jae-hyun. All heading straight for Earth. Yuna felt her stomach drop. More ships than they had expected. Much more. Send the signal to all fleet units, she ordered. Operation Last Stand is now active. All ships to move to battle positions in the asteroid belt. As the human fleet left Luna Station, Yuna stood on her bridge and watched Earth grow smaller behind them. The blue and white planet looked so peaceful from space. It was hard to believe that in a few days it might be a dead world. Captain, Engineer Minho called from his station. I've made some modifications to our weapons. They should hit harder now. What kind of modifications? Let's just say they're not exactly regulation anymore. But they'll work, Yuna smiled. Her crew was doing everything they could to give humanity a chance. Each of them was willing to die for their world and their people. It made her proud to serve with them. In the asteroid belt, the 43 human ships took their positions. Hidden among the space rocks, they waited for the enemy to arrive. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. It was also probably the last enemy fleet detected, reported the sensor operator. Distance, 2 million kilometers in closing. On the main screen, the Vorthak armada appeared like a dark cloud against the stars. Ship after ship after ship, more than anyone could count. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming strength. Yuna took a deep breath. All ships, this is Captain Kim. In a few minutes, we're going to fight the most important battle in human history. We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Our chances of survival are almost zero. But we're not fighting to survive. We're fighting so that the word human doesn't disappear from the galaxy. She paused, looking around at her crew. Whatever happens today, remember this, we never gave up. We never backed down. We showed the universe what it means to be human. The enemy fleet was getting closer. Soon the battle would begin, and Captain Yuna Kim, the youngest captain in fleet history, would lead humanity's final charge against the darkness. The asteroid belt stretched endlessly in all directions, a field of floating rocks and ice that had drifted here for millions of years. Hidden among these ancient stones, 43 human ships waited in silence. Captain Yuna Kim watched her tactical display as over 2,000 enemy vessels approached like a storm made of metal and death. Ghost Protocol is now active, she announced to the fleet. All ships maintain communication silence. Passive sensors only. The plan was simple in concept but deadly in execution. The asteroids contained high levels of metal ore that would confuse enemy sensors. By shutting down all active systems and drifting like space debris, the human ships could remain invisible until the perfect moment to strike. Captain, whispered Lieutenant Jae-hyun from his tactical station, the lead Vorthak ships are entering the belt. On the main screen, the enemy fleet began to spread out as it moved through the asteroid field. The Vorthak were being careful, using their sensors to map safe passages through the rocks. They had no idea that death was waiting all around them. Commander Jiwon checked her console quietly. All fleet units report ready. Captain Somin's stealth ships are in position for the diversionary attack. Yuna nodded. The first phase would be crucial. Captain Somin's 3 stealth frigates would hit the enemy's rear guard, making them think the attack was coming from behind. While the Vorthak turned to deal with that threat, the main human fleet would strike from the sides. Enemy command group identified, reported Jae-hyun. 5 large ships in the center of their formation. Those will be controlling the quantum weapons. Yuna studied the display. The Vorthak command ships were exactly where she had expected them to be, protected in the middle of their fleet. Getting to them would require fighting through hundreds of enemy vessels. Captain Somin, you are cleared to begin the diversion, Yuna transmitted on a tight beam. Far behind the enemy fleet, 3 human ships suddenly appeared on Vorthak sensors. Captain Somin's frigates hit the rear guard fast and hard, destroying 2 enemy cruisers before vanishing back into the asteroid field. The effect was immediate. The entire Vorthak fleet began to turn, trying to locate and destroy the attackers. Hundreds of ships changed course, their formations breaking apart as they searched for enemies among the rocks. Now, Yuna breathed. All ships attack pattern Delta. Target the command group. The asteroid field came alive with weapon fire as 40 human ships burst from their hiding places. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space, catching the Vorthak completely by surprise. Enemy ships exploded in brilliant flashes as the humans struck with everything they had. Direct hit on command ship number 3, reported Jae-hyun. She's breaking apart. The Defiant Dawn twisted between two large asteroids, her weapons firing continuously. Engineer Minho had pushed the ship's power systems beyond their limits, giving the weapons extra punch. Each shot hit like a hammer blow. "Captain, enemy ships are trying to surround us," warned Commander Jiwan. Yuna could see it happening on the tactical display. The Vorthak were recovering from their surprise, using their overwhelming numbers to trap the human ships. For every enemy vessel destroyed, 10 more took its place. "All ships begin evasive pattern 7, Yuna ordered. "Use the asteroids for cover." The human fleet scattered like leaves in a storm, each ship using the floating rocks to avoid enemy fire. It was dangerous flying. One mistake would send a ship crashing into stone, but it was their only chance against such overwhelming odds. Captain Dong Yun Kang's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain Kim, my ship is taking heavy damage. I can't reach the command group." The Iron Resolve was trapped between 3 enemy cruisers, her shields failing under concentrated fire. Yuna could see that Captain Kang's ship wouldn't last much longer. "Jae-hyun, target those ships attacking the Iron Resolve," she ordered. "Captain, that will take us away from our primary target," her tactical officer warned. "Do it anyway. We don't leave anyone behind." The Defiant Dawn changed course, diving through a gap between asteroids to reach the besieged cruiser. Her weapons found their targets, destroying one enemy ship and damaging another. The Iron Resolve limped away to safety. "Thank you, Captain Kim," came Kang's grateful voice. "I owe you one," but the rescue had cost them precious time. The surviving Vorthak command ships were beginning to coordinate their quantum weapons. On the tactical display, Yuna could see energy building between the enemy vessels. "All ships, emergency scatter," she broadcast. "They're charging their main weapons." The quantum weapon fired like a spear of pure energy, cutting through space where the human fleet had been moments before. The beam was so powerful it shattered asteroids in its path, turning solid rock into glowing vapor. "By all the stars," whispered Jiwan. "If that thing hits Earth?" Yuna didn't want to think about it. One shot from that weapon could crack a planet. They had to stop it before the Vorthak got within range of populated worlds. "Ghost Leader to Ghost 1, she called to Captain Soman. "How's the quantum virus coming?" "Almost ready," came the reply. "But I need to get within 2 kilometers of a command ship to upload it." 2 kilometers was practically point-blank range in space combat. Any ship that got that close to a Vorthak command vessel would be destroyed in seconds. "I'll make you a path," Yuna promised. She turned to her crew. "All power to forward shields. Prepare for ramming speed." "Captain, you can't," protested Jiwan. "That's suicide." "No, it's distraction. Minho, can you overload our weapon systems?" From engineering came the answer. "Already working on it, Captain. When these systems blow, they'll take out anything within 5 kilometers. The plan was insane, but it might work. If the Defiant Dawn could get close enough to the enemy command ships and detonate her own weapons, it would create enough chaos for Captain Soman to plant the virus. "All ships, this is Captain Kim," Yuna announced to the fleet. "Form up on me. We're going to punch through their center." The remaining human ships rallied around the Defiant Dawn as she charged toward the heart of the enemy formation. Vorthak vessels moved to intercept, their weapons lighting up space with deadly energy. Captain Taewon Seo's Corvette Bright Star took a direct hit and exploded. Captain Nara Jung's destroyer Freedom's Price lost her engines and began to drift helplessly. One by one, the human ships were being picked off, but they were getting closer to their target. "Enemy command ship directly ahead," reported Jae-hyun. "Range 10 kilometers and closing." "Shields at 30%, warned Jiwan. "Keep going," Yuna ordered. "Soman, are you ready?" "Standing by, Ghost Leader." At 5 kilometers, the Defiant Dawn's forward shields collapsed under enemy fire. At 3 kilometers, her hull began to crack. At 2 kilometers, Yuna gave the order. "Now, Soman, upload the virus." The Shadow Strike appeared from nowhere, racing past the damaged command ship at incredible speed. In the few seconds she was in range, Captain Soman uploaded the quantum virus into the enemy's communication network. The effect was immediate and devastating. The virus spread through the Vorthak fleet like wildfire, corrupting their targeting systems and scrambling their coordination. Ships began firing at each other by mistake. The quantum weapons shut down as their control systems failed. "It's working," shouted Jae-hyun. "Their formations are breaking apart." For a moment, it looked like the impossible plan might actually succeed. The human ships pressed their advantage, destroying confused enemy vessels as the Vorthak fleet descended into chaos. But the victory was short-lived. "Captain," Jaehyun's voice was full of horror. New contacts dropping out of hyperspace. "It's another enemy fleet." On the tactical display, fresh enemy ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of them, all heading straight for Earth. The virus only affected the ships that were networked together, realized Ji-won. This new fleet is operating independently. Yuna felt her heart sink. They had fought so hard, sacrificed so much, and it still wasn't enough. Even if they destroyed every ship in the first enemy fleet, the second fleet would reach Earth unopposed. "Captain, incoming transmission from the new fleet," reported the communication officer. The main screen flickered, showing the face of a Vorthak commander. The alien's features were sharp and cruel, with eyes like chips of black ice. "Human ships," the alien spoke in accented English. "You have fought well, but your world is already doomed. 12 of our planet-killer weapons are now approaching your homeworld. Surrender and we will make your deaths quick." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Planet killers," whispered Ji-won. "How many ships do we have left?" Yuna looked at the tactical display. Of the 43 ships that had started the battle, only 7 were still operational. The rest were either destroyed or too damaged to fight. 7 ships against 12 planet killers plus hundreds of escort vessels. "All remaining ships, this is Captain Kim," she said into her communicator. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed." "Captain," Ji-won said quietly, "we can't win this." Yuna looked at her old friend and smiled sadly. "Maybe not, but we can still try. That's what humans do. We never stop trying." As the 7 battered ships of humanity's last fleet raced toward Earth, Yuna knew they were facing impossible odds, but she also knew something the Vorthak didn't understand. Sometimes impossible odds were exactly what humans needed to do something truly extraordinary. The final battle was about to begin. 7 human ships raced through space toward Earth, their hulls scarred and their crews exhausted. Behind them, the asteroid belt glowed with the wreckage of the greatest space battle in human history. Ahead of them, 12 planet-killer weapons moved steadily toward humanity's homeworld. Captain Yuna Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The blue and white planet looked so peaceful, so beautiful. In a few hours, it might be nothing but burning rock and poisoned air. "Captain, we're receiving signals from Earth Defense Command," reported the communication officer. "Admiral Choi wants to speak with you." Admiral Hunwoo Choi appeared on the screen, his face lined with worry. Behind him, Yuna could see the frantic activity of the command center as staff officers tried to coordinate Earth's final defense. "Yuna, what's your status?" the Admiral asked. 7 ships operational, sir. We're pursuing 12 planet killers and their escort fleet. Current distance to Earth 4 million kilometers. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "Our orbital defense platforms are preparing to engage. We have 36 stations with heavy weapons plus the lunar defense grid. That won't be enough, sir. Not against 12 planet killers." "I know." Admiral Choi's voice was heavy with the weight of defeat. "The evacuation ships are already launching. We're trying to get as many people off-world as possible." Yuna felt a cold anger growing in her chest. The Vorthak wanted to destroy humanity, to wipe them from the galaxy like they had never existed. They thought humans were weak, that they would break and run when faced with overwhelming force. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Admiral, cancel the evacuation," Yuna said firmly. "What? Yuna, you can't be serious." "I am, sir. We're going to stop those planet killers. All of them." Admiral Choi stared at her through the communication link. 7 ships can't stop 12 planet killers. It's impossible. Then we'll do the impossible. It won't be the first time." Yuna cut the transmission and turned to face her crew. Commander Ji-won Park was watching her with worried eyes. Lieutenant Jae-hyun-oh looked up from his tactical station. From engineering, Lieutenant Min-ho Lee appeared on the internal screen, his face streaked with grease and sweat. "Listen carefully," Yuna said. "We're going to save Earth. I know it sounds crazy, but I have a plan." She activated the holographic display showing the tactical situation. The 12 planet killers were huge ships, each one the size of a space station. They were surrounded by dozens of escort vessels. "The planet killers have one weakness," Yuna explained. "Their main weapons draw power from fusion reactors in their core. If we can cause those reactors to overload, the explosion will destroy the ship. How do we get close enough? Asked G1. They're surrounded by escort ships. We don't get close. We go through them. Yuna traced attack vectors on the display. Each of our ships will target one planet killer. We ram them at full speed and detonate our antimatter stores inside their hulls. The explosion will trigger a fusion cascade that destroys the entire ship. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what Yuna was proposing. It was a suicide mission. Every ship, every crew member would die, Captain. Minho's voice was steady but sad. That plan will work, but none of us will survive. I know, Yuna replied quietly. But 6 billion people on Earth will survive. That's worth any price. Lieutenant Jaehyun looked up from his console. Captain, I'm detecting movement from the other surviving ships. They're forming up on us. On the tactical display, the 6 remaining human vessels had moved into formation around the Defiant Dawn. Yuna opened a communication channel to all ships. This is Captain Kim to all vessels. You've heard my plan. I won't order anyone to follow me on this mission. Any ship that wants to withdraw has my permission to do so. Captain Donghyun Kang's voice came back immediately. Iron Resolve standing by for final orders, Captain. It's been an honor serving under your command. Captain Somin Yoon was next. Shadow Strike ready. Let's show these aliens what humans are made of. One by one, the other captains checked in. Captain Taewon Seo in the Corvette Bright Star. Captain Nara Jung commanding the destroyer Freedom's Price. Every single ship volunteered for the suicide mission. All ships. Prepare for final approach, Yuna ordered. Target assignments are being transmitted now. We go in fast and hard. No hesitation, no regrets. The 7 human ships accelerated toward the enemy formation. The planet killers were massive, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. Around them, escort vessels moved in protective patterns like sharks around whales. Enemy ships are moving to intercept, reported Jaehyun. Looks like about 40 vessels. Let them come, Yuna said grimly. We're not stopping for anyone. The first enemy missiles reached them when they were still 2 million kilometers from the planet killers. The human ship's defensive systems shot down most of the incoming weapons, but some got through. The Freedom's Price took a hit that disabled her forward shields. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Yuna ordered, but maintained course toward the planet killers. The battle became a running fight as the human ships pushed through the escort fleet. Enemy vessels swarmed around them like angry insects, but the humans refused to be stopped. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to give up now. Captain Seo's Corvette was the first to reach its target. The Bright Star smashed through the planet killer's hull like a bullet through paper, detonating its antimatter stores deep inside the enemy ship. The explosion lit up space like a small sun as the planet killer's fusion reactors went critical and destroyed the entire vessel. 1 down. 11 to go, Yuna announced grimly. The Freedom's Price was next, ramming into its target despite heavy damage from enemy fire. Captain Young's sacrifice destroyed the second planet killer in another brilliant explosion. But the escort ships were taking their toll. The Iron Resolve was burning from multiple hits, her hull cracked and venting atmosphere. Captain Kang's voice came over the communication system, distorted by static. My ship won't make it to the target, he reported. Engines are failing. Understood, Captain, Yuna replied. Thank you for everything. No, Captain. Thank you. You showed us what real courage looks like. The Iron Resolve exploded under concentrated enemy fire, taking 3 escort vessels with her. Captain Kang and his crew died fighting to the end. The remaining 4 human ships pressed on. The Shadow Strike destroyed the 3rd planet killer, but Captain Somin's ship was crippled by the explosion and drifted helplessly in space. The Corvette Meteor's Edge took out the 4th planet killer before being vaporized by enemy weapons. 2 ships left, Ji-won said quietly. 8 planet killers remaining. Yuna looked at the tactical display. The destroyer Guardian's shield was racing toward its target, but enemy fire was tearing the ship apart. Even as she watched, the Guardian's shield lost power and began to tumble out of control. That left only the Defiant Dawn. Minho, how much antimatter do we have left? Yuna asked. Enough for maybe 3 or 4 explosions if we overload the containment systems, came the reply from engineering. That's not enough for 8 ships, Ji-won pointed out. Yuna studied the tactical display, her mind racing. 8 planet killers, 4 times more than they could destroy with their remaining antimatter. Unless... Jaehyun, are those planet killers close enough together for a chain reaction? Her tactical officer checked his instruments. If we could get their fusion reactors to overload simultaneously, yes. But we'd need to coordinate the explosions perfectly. What if we don't ram them? Yuna said suddenly. What if we get inside their formation and detonate everything at once? Captain, that's even more impossible than the original plan, Jiwon protested. Maybe. But impossible is what we do best. Yuna opened a communication channel to Earth. Admiral Choi, this is Captain Kim. In 60 seconds, I'm going to detonate our antimatter stores in the middle of the enemy formation. The explosion should trigger a chain reaction that destroys all remaining planet killers. Yuna, you can't. The Admiral's voice was desperate. There has to be another way. There isn't, sir. Tell everyone on Earth that we did our job. Tell them we never gave up. Yuna cut the transmission and turned to her crew. These people had followed her through every impossible battle, trusted her with their lives, become more than shipmates. They had become family. It's been an honor serving with all of you, she said simply. The Defiant Dawn dove into the center of the planet killer formation, enemy fire lighting up space around her. Her shields collapsed, her hull cracked, but she kept flying. At the last second, Yuna gave the final order. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone we couldn't save. She pressed the detonation button. The explosion was visible from Mars. The Defiant Dawn's antimatter stores detonated with the force of a small star, triggering fusion cascades in all 8 remaining planet killers. The chain reaction lit up the solar system as enemy ships vanished in balls of nuclear fire. When the light faded, Earth was safe. But Captain Yuna Kim and her crew were gone, their sacrifice written in fire across the darkness of space. On Earth, 6 billion people looked up at the sky and saw the distant flashes of light that marked humanity's greatest victory. They would never forget the young captain who had give. 50 years had passed since the Battle of Seoul, and the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Jiwon Park stood at the podium in the main auditorium of the Yuna Kim Naval Academy, looking out at 200 young faces. These cadets represented the best and brightest of humanity's new generation, and they had all come here to learn about the woman who had saved their species. Today marks the 50th anniversary of humanity's greatest victory, Admiral Park began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, but it was also our greatest loss. On this day, 50 years ago, Captain Yuna Kim and the crew of the UES Defiant Dawn gave their lives to save Earth and all of humanity. The cadets listened in respectful silence. Most of them had been born after the war, growing up in a galaxy where humans were respected as fierce warriors and brilliant tacticians. They knew the stories, but few truly understood what it had been like when humanity faced extinction. Admiral Park activated the holographic display behind her. Images of the final battle appeared in the air. Human ships fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. The planet killers approaching Earth, and finally the brilliant explosion that had ended the war. I was there, she continued. I served as first officer aboard the Defiant Dawn under Captain Kim. I watched her make impossible decisions and turn defeats into victories. I saw her sacrifice everything for people she had never met. A young cadet in the front row raised her hand. Admiral, why didn't Captain Kim evacuate her crew before the final attack? Couldn't they have escaped in life pods? Admiral Park smiled sadly. That question has been asked many times, Cadet. The truth is there wasn't time. The planet killers would have reached Earth in minutes. Every second counted. She paused, remembering those final moments on the bridge. But even if there had been time, I don't think any of us would have left. We believed in our captain and we believed in our mission. Sometimes the greatest honor is to stand with your friends at the end. The holographic display changed, showing the aftermath of the battle. Debris from the planet killers floating in space. The surviving Vorthak ships retreating in disorder. And Earth safe beneath its blue skies. The destruction of the planet killers marked the end of Vorthak aggression, Admiral Park explained. Without their super weapons, they could no longer threaten other species. Within 5 years, the Vorthak Empire collapsed, torn apart by civil wars and rebellions. Another cadet raised his hand. What about the other alien species? How did they react to humanity's victory? That's an excellent question, Cadet Jinwoo, Admiral Park replied. At first, many species were suspicious of us. They had never seen anyone defeat the Vorthak so completely. Some thought we might become the next galactic threat. The display showed images of alien diplomats meeting with human representatives. But then something unexpected happened. Other species began to study our tactics, our technology, our way of thinking. They discovered that humans had something unique, the ability to find hope in hopeless situations. Admiral Park walked among the cadets as she continued her lecture. Over the past 50 years, humanity has become known throughout the galaxy as the species that never gives up. When the Zilari faced a plague that threatened their homeworld, they asked for human doctors. When the Threks were attacked by space pirates, they requested human military advisors. A cadet near the back of the room spoke up. "Admiral, is it true that Captain Kim was only 26 when she died?" "Yes, that's correct. She was the youngest captain in fleet history, and many people doubted her because of her age. But age is just a number. What matters is courage, intelligence, and the willingness to do what's right no matter the cost." Admiral Park returned to the podium and activated a new holographic image. This one showed Captain Yuna Kim on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, young and determined with her crew around her. "This is how I remember Captain Kim," she said softly. "Not as a legend or a hero, but as a friend who always put others before herself. She was brilliant, yes, but she was also kind. She cared about every person under her command." The image changed to show the monument that had been built in Earth orbit. It was a simple structure made of crystallized metal from the Defiant Dawn's wreckage, with the names of all the crew members who had died in the final battle. "Captain Kim once told me that leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room," Admiral Park continued. "It's about bringing out the best in everyone around you." She had a gift for making people believe they could do impossible things. A cadet raised her hand. "Admiral, what do you think Captain Kim would say about the galaxy today?" Admiral Park considered the question carefully. "I think she would be proud of how far humanity has come, but she would also remind us that our work isn't finished. There are still injustices to fight, still people who need help, still challenges that seem impossible." The holographic display showed images of the modern galaxy, human ships exploring new worlds, human scientists working alongside alien researchers, human peacekeepers helping to resolve conflicts between species. Captain Kim's legacy isn't just that she saved humanity, Admiral Park explained. It's that she showed us who we could become. Before the war, humans were seen as a minor species, insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. Now we are leaders, teachers, and protectors. An older cadet, one who would graduate soon, asked a thoughtful question. "Admiral, how do we live up to that legacy? How do we honor what Captain Kim and her crew sacrificed?" Admiral Park nodded approvingly. "By remembering what they died for. They didn't die for glory or fame. They died because they believed that every human life had value, that freedom was worth any price, and that the universe is better when good people are willing to stand up for what's right." She looked out at the cadets, seeing in their faces the same determination that had driven their predecessors. "Each of you will face challenges in your careers. Some of you may face impossible odds, just as Captain Kim did. When that happens, remember her example. Remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite being afraid." The Admiral activated one final holographic image. It showed the current human fleet, hundreds of ships exploring the galaxy, protecting trade routes and keeping the peace between worlds. It was a far cry from the desperate handful of vessels that had fought at the Battle of Sol. Today, humanity operates the largest and most advanced fleet in known space, Admiral Park said with pride. "We have colonies on over 300 worlds. We are members of the Galactic Council and leaders in the Alliance for Peace. All of this exists because one young captain refused to accept defeat." A cadet in the middle of the auditorium stood up. "Admiral, I've heard that some aliens call humans the species that stands last. Is that true?" Admiral Park smiled. "It is true, cadet, and it's meant as a compliment. When other species face overwhelming odds, they look to humanity for inspiration. They know that if humans are willing to fight, there's still hope." She paused, remembering the young woman who had become a legend. Captain Kim was called the youngest captain in fleet history and the last to stand. But she wasn't really the last. Every time a human officer refuses to abandon their post, every time someone chooses to help others despite personal risk, every time we stand up for what's right, Captain Kim stands with us. The lecture was coming to an end. Admiral Park looked out at the cadets who would soon graduate and take their places aboard the ships of the human fleet. In a few months, you will begin your careers as officers in the Terran Defense Force. You will explore new worlds, meet alien species, and face challenges we can't imagine. When you do, remember that you carry with you the legacy of everyone who came before you. The holographic display showed one last image, the defiant Dawn flying into the heart of the enemy formation, her hull glowing with the fire of her sacrifice. Captain Yuna Kim and her crew gave us tomorrow, Admiral Park concluded. Now it's up to you to decide what we do with it. Make their sacrifice count. Make humanity proud. And remember, we never give up, we never back down, and we always stand for what's right. The cadets stood and saluted as Admiral Park left the stage. Outside the Academy windows, the stars beckoned with infinite possibilities. Somewhere among those stars, new challenges waited, but humanity would meet them as they always had, with courage, determination, and the memory of a young captain who had shown them the way. The legend of Yuna Kim would live forever, inspiring generation after generation to reach for the impossible and never give up hope. She had been the youngest captain in fleet history and the last to stand, but she would never truly be the last, because her spirit lived on in every human who dared to dream of a better tomorrow.